Let's talk about something your brain does every single night. It tells itself a story. A really weird, sometimes amazing, sometimes kind of terrifying story that you're the star of, but you have almost no control over. We all do it, but have you ever really stopped and wondered why? I mean, why do we dream? For centuries, that was a question for philosophers and mystics. But today we have actual clues from inside the brain itself. So let's get into it.
Oh yeah, if you've had those dreams, you are definitely not alone. These are some of the classic hits our brains love to play on repeat. They feel so real, so personal, and yet, most of the time, they make absolutely zero logical sense. So what's the deal? Are they just random, meaningless static? Or is there a real purpose to this whole nightly show? That's the mystery we're gonna try and unravel. All right, so where do we even start our investigation? Well, we've got to look at the first major scientific theory that tried to explain dreams not through psychology, but through pure, hard biology. And it suggests that maybe, just maybe, our dreams aren't as deep and meaningful as we like to think.
For a really long time, you couldn't talk about dreams without mentioning Sigmund Freud. His whole thing was that dreams are this secret code, a window into our deepest, darkest desires. But then, in 1977, science came along with a totally different idea. It's called the activation synthesis theory. And it basically proposed that dreams have no hidden meaning at all. They're just a biological side effect. So, two neuroscientists, J. Allen Hobson and Robert McCarley, came up with this. They said, look, when you're in that deep dream state called REM sleep, the lower part of your brain, the brainstem, it just starts firing off all these random electrical signals. And your higher brain, the cortex, that's the part that does all the thinking and makes sense of the world, it gets blasted with this chaotic storm of information and does the only thing it knows how to do. It tries to turn it all into a story. So let's break that down. It's basically a three-step process. Step 1, activation. Your brainstem just goes wild with random signals. Step 2, input. The thinking part of your brain gets hit with all this weird jumbled up input for sights, sounds, and feelings. And then, step 3, synthesis. Your cortex desperately tries to stitch these random pieces together into some kind of narrative. And that's your dream. You know, the sudden scene changes, the bizarre characters, it's all just your brain trying to make sense of nonsense. But is that really the whole story? Yeah, that random noise idea was a huge deal, but it didn't feel complete, you know? More recent science suggests that while dreams might feel chaotic, they're actually a sign of a really important and very organized process happening in the background.
Okay, think of your brain like an office. All day long, you're taking in tons of new information, emails, conversations, things you see, and it all gets piled high into a temporary inbox. In your brain, that inbox is a place called the hippocampus. It's not meant for long-term storage. So when you go to sleep, the night crew comes in to sort through that giant pile. And that process, it's called memory consolidation.
And this isn't just mindless sorting. This night crew is smart. It's going through everything from your day, deciding what's important enough to keep and what's just junk that can be tossed out. It strengthens the important stuff and even links new information to things you already know. So in this view, dreaming is what it feels like when that massive filing project is underway. Okay, but that brings up a huge question, right? If this is all about making memories, why can't we remember most of our dreams? Well, it turns out your brain is pretty clever. It has a built-in forgetting switch. There are these specific neurons, MCH cells, that fire up during REM sleep, and their main job seems to be to stop the dream's story from being saved as a real memory. And that's actually a really good thing. It's a safety feature, making sure you don't wake up genuinely believing you spent last night flying. All right, so we've got random noise and we've got memory filing. But there's another really critical piece to this puzzle. It turns out our dreams aren't just about sorting information, they're also about processing our feelings.
A lot of scientists now think that one of the most important jobs of dreaming is to help us regulate our emotions. It's kind of like a way to take the sharp, painful edge off of our difficult experiences. It allows us to process things without all the stress and anxiety. Basically, it's like having a therapist who visits you every single night.
And this chart shows it perfectly. It's called the sleep to remember, sleep to forget idea. Here's how it works. During REM sleep, your brain replays emotional memories. But, and this is the key part, it does it in a chemical environment where your stress hormones are super low. So what happens? You keep the memory, you keep the lesson, but you strip away the intense emotional pain attached to it. It's how we move on from tough stuff without being stuck in a loop of trauma. Pretty incredible. And it gets even cooler. Some theories suggest our dreams are like our own personal virtual reality simulator. They let us rehearse for tricky or stressful situations, like that test you're not ready for, or giving a big speech, but in a totally safe space. By running these simulations at night, we're actually better prepared to face the real thing during the day. So we've got these different theories: random noise, memory, emotions. And for decades, that's pretty much where the science was. The world of dreams was still a locked box. You could only ever find out what happened after the dreamer woke up. But then, something happened. Something that feels like it was ripped straight from a sci-fi movie. I mean, seriously, think about that for a second. It sounds impossible, right? How could you possibly break through that wall of sleep and have a real two-way conversation with someone who's deep inside their own subconscious world? Well, get this. This isn't a movie plot. In 2021, scientists did it. They actually did it. For the very first time in history, researchers opened a line of communication into a dream and got an intelligent answer back out. So how on earth did this work? Well, it's amazing. They worked with what are called lucid dreamers. These are people who can become aware that they're dreaming while they're dreaming. First, the dreamer would send a signal that they were lucid, moving their eyes left and right in a special pattern. Then, the scientist would ask a simple math problem out loud, like, what's 8 minus 6? The dreamer heard the question inside their dream, figured out the answer, and then signaled back with their eyes. 1, 2. The answer was 2. A real conversation. Absolutely wild. And you might be thinking, okay, maybe they just got lucky. Nope, this was not a fluke. To prove it was real, research teams in 4 different countries, the US, Germany, France, and the Netherlands, all managed to do the exact same thing independently. The locked box had officially been opened. This breakthrough completely changes the game. It's changed everything we thought we knew about the sleeping mind. It's like we've suddenly found a doorway to a new frontier in understanding consciousness itself. So after all of that, what's the final answer? What is a dream? Well, the truth is, it's not just one thing. It seems to be all of it. It's your brain's random story time, it's your memory filing system, it's your nightly therapist, and your VR simulator, all rolled into one incredible process. And we can't forget about creativity, right? The power of the dreaming brain is just mind-blowing. Check this out. It's from an old experiment in the 70s. A person was told to stare at this complex Salvador Dalí painting before bed. When a sleeper in another room woke up, they were asked to draw what they dreamt. And this is what they drew. The similarity is just uncanny, right? It's a wild peek into how our brains can just grab an image and totally remix it in the dream world. And that really brings us to the most exciting part. The door to the dream world is now officially open. We can ask questions and get real-time answers from a dreaming mind. So where do we go from here? What's the first thing we should ask? Should we try to solve problems, learn a new skill, maybe even create art together? The exploration of our inner universe has really only just begun.